In this lesson, we'll learn how to convert a logo back into vectors using image trace after it's been rasterized. Alright, so this is the Lesson 5 begin file. If you want to open this up and follow along, feel free. So basically, as a designer, you don't ever know where a client's going to come from. Oftentimes they bring logos, identities, files with them. And if you've dealt with a number of clients, you've probably had one bring you a logo that they had only in a rasterized form, whether it be a JPEG, whether it be a TIFF, something that was not vector, and they needed to utilize it like it was a vector logo. Well, we can actually do a pretty fair job of converting that rasterized logo back into vectors using the image trace here inside of Illustrator. So let me go ahead and show you about how I would go about this here. We'll just kind of zoom in on this logo, and let's go ahead and select it, and we'll jump over here to our image trace panel, and let's go ahead and choose a preset to start from. Now I would probably want to go ahead and start from one of the higher quality presets, one where Illustrator is going to try and pick up as many details as it can. So let's go ahead and maybe just choose our high color right here. Now this is going to be giving us that same warning about it being a large file, and it may take a little bit of time. I'm not too concerned about that because I know that there's a limited amount of color in this file, and I know I have saved this as a 2K image, so it's 2048 pixels by 2048 pixels. So hopefully your client's able to give you at least that much resolution in whatever logo they provide for you. So we'll go ahead and use the image trace using that high color preset, and we'll let Illustrator calculate that out for us. Now it may take a little bit of time because of the resolution, but we'll go ahead and let that finish up here. There we go. Okay, so you can see here right off the bat, it looks like it's done a pretty fair job, but I want to show you some areas where even using the high color preset is going to fall short when it comes to creating a vector version of this raster logo. So if we were to zoom in here on that G in the center of the little puzzle pieces and really start to look at the edges here, kind of around the corners, whether it be over here on the letter G or whether it's the actual corners of the puzzle pieces themselves, I want you to notice something. The corners have all been rounded. So this is something that's actually pretty common. And I want to actually come down here and kind of give the letter forms a look as well. So if we come down here, it looks like most of the letter forms in the word Griffin are okay. Let's come down here and look at an Associates. Now, you may start to see some little discrepancies like that, which, you know, that may seem like a very small thing, but that will definitely show up in print. Now, one thing that you can do in order to sort of come in here and reclaim some of these nice crisp corners, you can see how they've really been rounded off on this letter here, is we can come over here to the image trace advanced options, and down here underneath the, whether we're creating a stroke or a fill, you have this option here to snap curves to lines. So basically what that does is sometimes, depending on the font that's used, you'll start to see like little bubbles start to appear at certain places with your letters or your type, and it also might happen with the logo itself. So we'll just come over here and click that snap curves to lines. And so what this does is it's telling Illustrator that for paths that are just slightly curved, we want to snap those to a straight line. So a lot of times that happens because Illustrator's starting to see sort of that stair-step pixel pattern that is so common with a rasterized image, especially at lower resolutions. So in checking this, it's going to try and avoid that. Now we want to make sure that is turned on, and we also want to make sure our paths are as accurate as possible. So I'm going to come in and dial this up under paths, and we'll set that in to about 90. Now, you want to be careful about how high you go up with that setting. If you just ramp it all the way up to 100%, Illustrator will probably start showing you how it interprets that stair-step pattern in a lot more detail. So remember, it's trying to be as precise as it possibly can when it's creating this image trace for you. So by ramping that up to about 90%, we'll take a look and see how it does here. And you can see here how it's started to get quite a bit more accurate, giving us a nice crisp corner for the most part on those letter forms. We might even be able to go up a little bit more. We still have a little bit of curvature here. So I tell you what, let's do. We'll just go ahead and ramp that up to 100%, and we'll see what that outcome looks like. All right, great. So here's what I'm talking about when it comes to ramping that up to 100%. Let me just kind of zoom in here. You're going to start to see little bitty discrepancies sort of like that, where Illustrator's starting to take into account that stair-stepping pattern, even at this high resolution. Remember, this is a 2K image, so we've got quite a bit of pixels to deal with here. But even at that type of a resolution where you're starting to get that stair-step pattern influencing the paths that are created, we do have nice crisp corners here, but our path is a little bit wobbly here. So we probably want to try and find that happy medium between the two. So I'm going to just dial that down to about 95%. And all right, that looks like it's pretty close. Now, there's no way this is going to be 100% perfect when it comes to the actual vector logo that was originally created for this. But for converting this particular raster image into a vector version, we've done a pretty fair job here. Now at this point we would probably want to come in and begin to correct any issues that we still find. If we still find any rounded corners like this one here, we might want to come in and go ahead and create that corner by hand here inside of Illustrator. Also want to keep a lookout again for any sorts of little wavy patterns that are showing up in the paths around our logo. But at this point we would just simply come in and go ahead and expand that, and now what we have here is a vector version of this logo. Now, before I expanded that, I neglected to tell you there's actually another setting here that I'd like to talk to you a little bit about. And it's going to come in handy in this particular example because of all this white space around the logo. So while we wait for Illustrator to go ahead and process this, the little setting that I'm talking about is right below that Snap Curves to Lines option inside the image trace dialog. It just simply says ignore the white space. So with the without that turned on, Illustrator is going to come over here and it's going to actually create shapes with a white fill. If I go ahead and drag that off my artboard, you'll notice that we're creating shapes with a white fill. Now again, I'm currently set to overlapping shapes, so you'll notice here that I can't check that ignore white space option. But if I come over here and choose the method for abutting shapes, meaning we're going to punch through each other, we can now come in and choose ignore white. And if I go ahead and click on the preview option here, you can see that Illustrator is doing its absolute best to ignore all of the areas that are white in nature. Now again, it's not perfect, and you are starting to see some of these smaller shapes around the letter forms that Illustrator doesn't think they're white, so it's going to go ahead and create those shapes. So at this point, when we go ahead and expand this, we would simply need to select all the white shapes and remove them. And that's very, very simple to do. We'll just simply come in and expand that and let Illustrator do its thing here. And now we could come in and simply ungroup, select one of those white shapes, choose Select, Same, Fill Color, and you can see it selects all those white areas and just delete those. So in this lesson we've learned how we can take a logo that has been rasterized and convert it back into a vector format. All right, with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson. I want to show you how we can simplify a raster image to vectors, specifically for spot color printing.